What's going on, guys? I'm Chris.
And I'm Andy.
And we've got a cool video today with sports coming back very soon. Fingers crossed that it does. We decided to sit down and talk about our top 5 favorite sports movies because it's a genre we've never really talked about on the channel, but it's one that we both love.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for the NBA and like baseball and NHL to come back soon, and hopefully football in the spring or in the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know with Corona and everything, but I mean, these movies for sure are all great, and I mean, I'm excited to get into it.
Definitely, and I think the way we'll do this is if we have an honorable mention, we'll address that, and then we will just take turns going from 5 to 1. So, Andy, do you have any honorable mentions you can start with?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a ton of great sports movies out there, of course, but the one that I wanted to get in as my honorable mention is Space Jam with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm including this one is because this is the only basketball movie I could really think of, and with basketball about to come back, like, this one represents it perfectly.
An honorable mention for me would kind of be cheating. It would be all the Rocky/Creed movies that don't make the list because I love that franchise as a whole, but I picked my favorite one, and you'll see that later on the list, but that would be my honorable mention.
Yeah, I second that for sure, especially like, Rocky 4.
Yeah, any of the ones that we don't talk about, we like them all. So coming in at number 5 for me is Coach Carter. Now, this movie stars Samuel L. Jackson as Coach Carter himself, and he is the head coach of a high school basketball team. And what the movie does well is it tackles kind of these racial issues within the school and kind of a poor California community. And you get to see this team bond throughout the movie. And Samuel L. Jackson's performance is very solid. You actually see a young Channing Tatum in here, one of his first roles. So I've always enjoyed that tidbit. But if you want a solid basketball movie, you should check out Coach Carter.
For me, number 5 is going to be one that everybody's seen. And it's a classic, of course. And it's The Sandlot. I mean, this movie is so iconic to me. I love it. I own it. I've seen it so many times. And, of course, the cast of characters is so great. Like, all the kids, Smalls, all that stuff. I have a shirt with him on the back of it. Like, it's just so iconic. And I love the scenes when they're playing baseball. And the music is so good. Also, like, when they're at the pool and stuff with the lifeguard. The Sandlot is just, like, a classic. And it always just gives me good vibes when I watch it, I feel like.
Coming in at number 4 for me, the poster right there gives it away, is Rocky. The original Rocky, Best Picture winner. I absolutely love this movie. I think that it's one of the most inspirational and or motivational movies I've ever seen. Because whenever I watch it, I always want to go for a run or start working out again. And that's what I love about it. You get to see this underdog story, Sylvester Stallone playing Rocky Balboa. And he has no shot to beat Apollo Creed, but then you get to see him train with Mick and go through his relationship with Adrian, and you really start to feel for this guy. You get to root for him, and by the time the iconic training montage with Gonna Fly Now, the score by Bill Conti playing, when that comes around, I have chills. I want to jump out of the chair. I'm just pumped, ready to go for the final fight.
My number 4 is another baseball movie, back-to-back, pretty interesting for me, and that is going to be Moneyball with Brad Pitt. This is a super good movie. It came out a couple years ago, and it was nominated for Best Picture, along with a lot of other things. And I mean, the screenplay in this movie is super good. It flows so well. Do you know who wrote it?
Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin. That's what I thought. I mean, his dialogue is so great, and like, it makes things that would normally be boring to me like super interesting. And Chris Pratt has a funny role in this, like as like the main guy on the A's. Jonah Hill is super good in this movie, one of his best performances for sure. And in that ending scene with Brad Pitt in the car is super good. I just love this movie.
I actually love this movie as well, which is why it comes in at number 3 for me. Moneyball is my number 3. It's directed by Bennett Miller and written by Aaron Sorkin. And the reason this movie excels above other sports movies is, like you mentioned, the script by Aaron Sorkin. He's one of the best working today. I absolutely love his work. And what he does with this movie is he takes baseball, and not just baseball, but like the stats behind baseball, and makes them interesting and accessible to anyone. I was locked in during this movie. He made it so intense. And there's a scene with Jonah Hill and Brad Pitt where they're talking about stats and getting on base, and that's one of my favorite sequences in this movie. But the standout in this movie has to be the win streak. It's like a montage kind of in the middle. That game, the last game in that win streak that they show, is very intense, and I have always loved that. But all around, I think it's one of Brad Pitt's best performances. Jonah Hill, Oscar nominated, fantastic performance, and just a really, really solid sports movie that I think anyone should see, even if you don't love baseball.
Number 3 for me, might be a surprise to you to be on here, is Creed 2. I mean, Creed 2 is so dang badass. Like, Michael B. Jordan, amazing performance in that movie. It's like not only like super good with the fighting and stuff, but also the emotion. I actually found myself like tearing up at parts in this movie with him and Tessa Thompson's relationship is super good. And like at the end when he's like at his dad's grave is like super good. The score in this is so good too. It's by the same guy who did Black Panther and The Mandalorian. My favorite part of this movie is like the conflict between Adonis and the Dragos. When him and Rocky are in there, Ivan Drago, and they're in the kitchen talking. His conflict with the son is super good. Their fights, they have 2 fights in the movie, so good. And then of course that scene in the desert, like, chills every time. Like, one of the best Rocky training scenes.
So before we give our top 2s, definitely consider liking this video and commenting your favorite sports movies down below. We'd love to hear them. But with that being said, coming in at number 2 for me is Miracle, the 2004 Disney sports movie starring Kurt Russell. And I absolutely love this movie. I have so much nostalgia for it because I remember watching it with my family all the time growing up. I had the DVD and I scratched it up. I have the Blu-ray now. But it tells the story of the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. And they just consist of a bunch of younger kids, like college-age kids who play hockey from Minnesota, Boston. And they go on to the Olympics, and they have to take on the Russians, the Soviet Union at the time, and the semifinals. And that's what the movie basically builds up to. That's the big climax. But what I love about this movie is you get to see this group of kids come together. They form this strong bond. And you see Kurt Russell's coach, Herb Brooks, really go through it all. There's this one scene where he's making the team run sprints after a game, and it's always been inspirational to me. When he has the whistle, he keeps going, again, again. It really speaks to someone who's played sports, because I've had to go through that conditioning after a game. But I do love Miracle. The final act is insane. There's one of the best motivational sports speeches ever given. Great moments are born from great opportunity.
My movie, my number 2, is also on ice, but it isn't hockey, and that is I, Tonya. To me, I, Tonya is definitely the best acted sports movie of all time that I've ever seen. Like, that's just my personal opinion. Margot Robbie as Tonya Harding gives, like, an electric performance that she was nominated for, and I wish she would have won, even though that was a stacked year with Frances McDormand winning. Of course, her mom, Allison Janney, her character was great too. She was really evil, and she won the Oscar that year, and she was really deserving. Sebastian Stan, super funny in this. Also, Paul Walter Hauser, I think that's his name. Those
Loaded
two
cast,
are so funny in their role. Like, Sebastian Stan, completely different role from him as Bucky. He's just like this like evil husband. It's funny to see him in that role. The dialogue in this movie too is so good. The whole movie I was entertained, and like, the music is so good. Everything about it is edited so well. I remember that one shot too, where like it's just such a long shot through like the neighborhood. Like, it's very creative.
Coming in at number 1 for me is, if you've watched the channel for any time, this should be a no-brainer. It's Remember the Titans. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. The one thing that really stands out in this movie is Denzel Washington's performance as Coach Boone. I truly believe that it's Oscar-worthy. I don't know why the Academy overlooked him, but the movie itself talks about T.C. Williams High School in Virginia, and it's dealing with segregation. It's in about the 60s or 70s, I want to say. And this football team has to come together with African Americans and white players, and they go off to training camp. They have a bonding experience there, and then you see this brotherhood grow, and it just is so powerful. It's a movie that I think as a country everyone should sit down and watch right now, because it's very relevant to what's going on today. But the sports aspects itself, you get some very well shot football games. The stakes are really high, and you just feel the tension. It's like you're watching an actual football game, which is something I have to give this movie credit for. I've always loved it. It's my go-to sports movie. It also stars a young Ryan Gosling in a very funny role, and the soundtrack, it might be my favorite soundtrack of all time. I listen to it on a loop. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, that's where I was introduced to this song. But Remember the Titans, I could go on and on. I love it, and it will always be my favorite sports movie.
For me, number 1 is actually Ryan Coogler's Creed, their first Creed. I actually obviously like Creed better than the Rockies. I love Rocky IV, the original Rocky. Like, Rocky III is super good. But I think that in this movie, Sylvester Stallone's character of Rocky is like the best it's ever been. He actually got nominated for this performance. Should have won that year. And I mean, he was robbed, but his performance is so good. It's really emotional when he gets cancer and stuff. It's just like, I mean, I cry in this one too. And both the Creeds, they're both emotional. Tessa Thompson and like Michael B. Jordan's relationship, like, it begins in this movie, of course, and like they're so good together. Like, her hearing, like, that's a nice touch too. And then like him like wearing his dad's shorts, just like the touches to Rocky that Ryan Coogler included. And then that one fight at the end, that's all one take, is like so creative. The score, super good. Like, this movie, both Creed movies get me pumped like so much. And it might just because like I'm younger that I like the Creeds more than Rocky, but I mean, they're doing something good. Like, it has the potential to be one of the best trilogies, I think, if the third one sticks the landing like the first two.
So that's a wrap for our top 5 favorite sports movies video. Hope you all enjoyed. I know we're both pumped for sports to finally be back, so that's why I wanted to do this video. Get some sports related content out to you, but definitely consider hitting the like button. Like I said earlier, comment your favorite sports movies down below. We'd be interested to hear that, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Weekly live stream as always, collabs, just videos in general. Just stay tuned. The support really does mean a lot. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.
See you guys. Thanks.